We're late on having family issues, illnesses and stuff. Hi, Ms. McEnany. So, this is a meeting of the Finance Committee. It is October 24th. With us are Finance Committee members, Mr. Robinson, Ms. Farrell, and Mr. O'Brien. We also have President Pro Tem Conti, Mr. Kimbrough, Majority Leader Kimbrough, and Mr. Ballerin. And the purpose of, and then we have a lot of people in the audience which you can introduce as you may wish. The purpose of today's meeting is to go over the budget for the Department of Administrative Services, and then also we will be hearing from Ms. Rizzo on her budget for Audit Department. Ms. McEnany, Commissioner McEnany, has advised us that she believes the accomplishments and goals that are contained in the budget and the budget items in 28 through
26, 27, and 28.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Oh, right, 26, 27, 28.
Yeah.
And which is a little bit more comprehensive than most of the departments have provided us with in the budget, covers what, in terms of like, instead of a handout, we're going to be essentially predominantly focusing in on that. And then the budget for this department continues on to page 34. So it's 26 through 34. And luckily, she has no bonds.
No.
So we took a bit of time last night going over the budget and then going over bonds. With that, I will turn over the floor to Commissioner McEnany. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for coming today, and I look forward to talking about the Department of Administrative Services, which has only been created a few years ago. I just first of all would like to introduce some of my key members of my team, and I also invited them because I think you may have additional questions. There's Alay Medina, who is the Director of Cultural Affairs, which really, it works directly with the public. They put on award-winning shows all year long, and which provides the city an opportunity to bring tens of thousands of people in the audience. I think Alay has been doing a terrific job, and you can ask her about her programming for next year and plans for many of our outward-facing work that we do with the public. Also, Michael Wheeler, you're very familiar with Michael Wheeler, who is our budget director. There is Celia Gonzalez. Celia Gonzalez is our human resources director.
Oh, I didn't know that.
For now, yes.
Oh, okay.
She's here. And Celia was a consultant a few years ago with our human resources department, as well as really helped us hire our chief diversity officer. She comes with probably 40 years of experience working in equity and EEO work, and it is really, really a privilege to work with her. I learn so much from her every day. And then, of course, my assistant, Amy Hendrickson, who keeps me going to places where I need to be, and really has been a phenomenal asset to our budget office. She gets people paid. She really does. She really moves a lot of work through our offices, which helps. So administrative services in general is centralized, does mainly the centralized functions for the city of Albany. We get people paid. We get people hired. We also outboard them. We work every day with other departments like law, the police department, the fire department. We administer civil service, which is all of our tests. We are governed by civil service. We take it very, very seriously. So, and then we also, and again, you know this from the headlines, budget is something you are very concerned with, but as well as our information technology department, which, as you know, earlier this year, we suffered a ransomware attack. And it was a national story. People followed how we recovered. And it really made us take a deep dive into our own internal structure, as well as when this happens to a city. We were fortunate enough because we were paying attention to what happened in cities like Baltimore and in Atlanta, which are still trying to dig out of the mess that they had. And we also were able to identify some of our vulnerabilities and tighten up some of our internal controls. Yes?
We didn't pay a ransom, right?
We did not pay a ransom.
And-
Correct.
And how
Can
much?
we let her finish her
Okay.
presentation?
I know, it's very exciting. No,
Take
it
notes
was.
on your questions. Take notes on your questions.
So
You have a
it
pen.
really, one of the things we're working on right now, but we can get into the different departments. So I didn't want to spend a lot of time giving you a PowerPoint. I really wanted to direct your individual questions that you would have to admin services. Some of the highlights are, as well as in our innovation performance, we have budgeted for an energy manager. Years ago, and you might have known him, was a Kevin Luteran, who worked with us for NYSERDA. So for 3 years, he was an excellent asset to us, which he really drove our grants and managed us through our LED transition, as well as buying our streetlights. And we recognized that that was an important asset to grow. We base them in admin services because, especially our innovation and performance department, which is like our project managers, they really take many of our grants, like the Bloomberg grants, and they really follow through to the end. So we're very excited that we're able to budget for an energy manager because we want to be a sustainable city. And then the other highlight is...
Didn't we have an energy manager before, though?
We did, but it was a 3-year funding source through the Power Authority, I believe.
I'm violating my own rules.
And then we went through 3 years, and he's gone. He was hired by them, so we wanted to budget for ourselves. So with that, some of the larger other increases are centralizing our budget office, as well as looking at our IT department and how it was staffed, and really looking in our contracted services, as well as our IT department, and getting one who's going to be really based on security, because we get hundreds of attacks a day, some sort of level of breaches, which is not unusual for a large organization like this. We stop them and they're logged, but we really want to look at we want to be able to analyze it. So it's almost like hiring a security guard and looking at it, but also looking at employee users, how they're using their smartphones, their laptops, and trying to have that person identified, as well as a deputy IT director, and which will also help our IT director grow into the organization that we really need for information technology. We just can't outsource our IT department. There's just too many moving parts. So with that, I think I'm just going to open it up to questions.
So there is the addition of an IT deputy in here.
There's
correct?
There's two positions. What page is our IT department on? Again,
Well, one's being eliminated and one's being created.
right,
32, looks like.
page 32? Yeah. So, right, so there are two systems. So we're going to have a deputy director IT, as well as we eliminated what was called the web developer. That is a vacant position. And this person will be this is a senior network system technician. And that person, and it's not filled right now, so that would be 2 vacancies. And that would be someone who would be focused on our network, specifically.
But we had somebody. We had somebody, senior network technician, and now we're adding
Another.
the senior network technician.
There's only one additional position, the
Deputy.
director. The vacant senior network system technician, we just increased the salary by Mark Dory's suggestion to make it more competitive because we weren't receiving any applicants for that position.
The IT department is similar to the law department. These are not very competitive salaries in the IT world. So that continues to be problematic to fill these positions. We struggle in the IT department to build talent, so.
So there's no net change in that department. One of the questions that one of my constituents asked me
But higher salaries, yeah.
is, did we identify the employee who caused the incident with regard to the ransomware? Did we identify exactly how that happened?
We did identify exactly how it happened, but it is an ongoing FBI investigation, so I'm uncomfortable with that particular question right now. I'd have to really check, because it is an ongoing federal investigation. But
So
yes, that employee has been identified, and, there has been corrective measures as well, so.
this constituent wanted to know if
Who?
if this person was, so, it's an IT person who's a constituent who's asking me these questions. He was pretty outraged that we spent $300,000. He said, somebody opened something that they shouldn't have opened. This is what he said. So you can say what you want in response, but I'm just going to say, he said, somebody opened something that they should not have opened, or they visited a website that they should not have visited. And this is kind of IT security 101, that all employees should know how not to do this. And so he was asking, how is it that we put ourselves in a position of costing taxpayers $300,000, being subjected to potential ransom, and he wanted to know if the person was still on payroll.
Well, I mean, that's pretty extreme, considering we didn't have a training program for, we did not have our employees getting any sort of training for cyber. So one of the things that we implemented after the ransomware attack was an internal control. That is a position where we're looking at, and we have had most employees take the cybersecurity class. That's a webinar. But in general, it's happening every day, Judy. It's very quick in this world that we look at something on our phone and we put in our credentials. Just 2 weeks ago, we had someone else who, again, we did not have in our personnel policies handbook. What is the discipline manner? Is it a level that you can, quote unquote, fire people? We live in a world where people have job protection. Were they spoken to and disciplined? Absolutely. But we didn't have a strong cyber rule about this. So now we do. We have changed our personnel and policies handbook that we can be a level of discipline to it. This is very expensive. But in defense of your friend who's an IT, your constituent who's an IT expert.
Not a friend, yeah, just.
Then we need to look at.
I don't even know.
We need to look
He
at
came
Baltimore. We need to look at the 17 municipalities that were hit in Texas. We need to hit at the 13 municipalities that were hit in Florida a couple months ago that NPR just did a huge profile on. In general, yes, this continues to happen. The problem is we buy technology, we love it, and then we don't practice those practices. One of the reasons this only cost $300,000 is because we had a backup strategy. And a backup strategy is we backed up our network nightly. So when they attacked, those who were in charge of the programs that the IT department were in charge of, those weren't touched. They weren't touched. So we didn't lose our ERP system. We were up within 2 hours after the initial attack. And that's because we were on high alert that this was happening. So we didn't lose our ERP system. So we were able to purchase, we were able to pay people, we were able to continue on. Now, what we had our employees do is, we had to clean and scrub every single laptop in the entire city. So some of the work we couldn't do, we didn't have the ability to print, because that was remote access, because we cut what's called remote access off, which helped a lot. So in defense of our IT director, we were very fortunate that he was alerted by our software. He realized there was a problem and he came down and he shut off most of our systems in no time. And most importantly, 911 dispatch never saw a blip, and our police and fire could respond in real time. Did the police department not have access to their calendars on their smartphones? Yep. And that took because it was remote access. So we had to slowly rebuild. And then, you know, one of the reasons it wasn't more expensive is we had state ITS, which is called like an incident command. And every municipality should know this. And I call it cyber sandbags. They came in and they brought IT experts in who helped, really helped us go from PC to PC. And yes, we identified some bad, it's called cyber hygiene. You know, people had downloaded apps they shouldn't have. People were buying stuff online. People were printing out coupons for their personal work. So how much can you monitor, right? Do we take away social media, which a lot of people use? So it's really like, you know, this is all uncharted areas, right? So where do we go from here? You know, stronger password protection, training. Everybody has a responsibility. Everybody does. But it's very easy if you look at these phishing issues that this happened. But this was an interesting attack. So
Social media is used for
At some
your
point,
job,
will
too,
you share with
sometimes,
us
so-
what more?
you want to know more?
Well, I mean, with regard to, you know, the FBI investigation and
Right.
that, which you can't talk about right now.
Right. It is an active federal investigation. These ransomers, how it was described to us is sometimes what they do is someone found a way in, and then they sell on the black market, the black web, to another ransomer. I think you can get 12 bitcoins from the city of Albany, and they'll pay. So then what they do is they're running like anywhere from 15 to 20 ransoms all over the country, all over the world. And even the FBI said, even if we paid, they have less than a 50% that they fine them. And again, when we saw that our critical functions were intact, it really became clear that it wasn't worth negotiating. Did we lose some? We lost some death and birth certificates, but the state has worked with us to restore them, and it's going to take a year right now. So, but there's other ways to get those death and birth certificates. You can go to the state, you can go to Manans, but we will get back there. You know, I'm confident about that. And then we had some
I just
legacy.
want to know for the record that Ms. Fahey is here. I don't know. Is there anybody else? No.
So are there any costs still to be reckoned because of the incident? Or is it $300,000?
I think we've paid everything possible, which would, yeah, I think we paid for the work that we needed and the infrastructure that we wanted to rebuild, correct, yep. And then in contracted services, there are some new outside software companies that we're working with, security companies to keep us safe.
No,
Go ahead.
yeah, okay. So I know that some of the portions of the HR portal I can't access, such as the payroll external things. Yeah, I can access from my home computer. I think
Right.
after the attack, that's when.
Yeah, we have been slow to get some of our remote access
Okay.
back online. And that might be part of it. Our HR portal is not available for certain levels.
Okay,
Yeah.
so how can we gain access to that? 'Cause
Well, what do you
it's
wanna
kinda
do?
inconvenient for me to come down here and at times to come down here and print things that I need off
Okay.
of the,
Is it for open enrollment?
not open enrollment, such as I need paycheck stubs. I can't get log in and print my paycheck stubs. So I need,
All right.
other access.
I mean, we can, of course, for you, we can have our payroll department print off any pay stub that you need. We'll absolutely
Okay, so-
accommodate.
But I can't do it myself.
I know, I have to look into exactly why you don't have remote access for it, but I think we've been slow in giving back remote access to users.
So, I mean, is any other council members?
I need to.
Is everybody? I can't.
Do you guys want to print out your paychecks?
I already did.
Okay.
I mean, but-
I've never been able to access it, but I'm old school.
Yeah,
I like paper, and I still
No.
get a paper check. I'm old school. I don't have to-
It shows up in my bank account statement. I'm happy.
yeah.
Okay, but I'm just saying that
Right.
you don't think that we'll ever be able to get access to that?
Oh, no, we will,
Okay.
absolutely. Yeah, I'll look into it. You know, it's actually the first I've heard about it, so, yeah.
On a side note, what is open enrollment?
Open enrollment starts the whole month of November. Yep.
Other questions, not just on cybersecurity, but, any other aspects of the budget for administrative services?
I have a couple of constituents who are, in terms of the special events, they just, I don't know if they feel like the special events are very focused on these specific things that happen, and they're not necessarily they're for people in Albany, but they're for it's not just for Albany people. And has there ever been discussion about kind of broadening that? I guess that's the thing. It seems like Albany does these events, and that's what we do. And that's that. And I've had a few constituents.
They want more.
Yeah, they want more. And they also wouldn't mind things like the Washington Park Farmers Market.
More in all in Washington Park, too.
Right.
So you
Well, no,
close
but
those
like the
things down.
Washington Park Farmers Market, not necessarily events in Washington Park, but I think the Washington Park Farmers Market is an excellent example of something that is for city people that live here. So I don't think it has to be in Washington Park at all. That's not what they talked about, but more,
Don't take my market away from me.
don't
So,
worry.
I'm gonna.
No, but in favor of it, because that's really and it feels good, and you see everybody from Albany, and just things like that,
So, we have designated projects that we produce, and then there are special events and cultural affair events that we sponsor. So, but like the Latino Festival, we don't necessarily run, but we support it. And then you have to talk about every block party, everyone who's looking for different permits, we're a busy city. And every single one of those events, we have to also factor in police overtime, fire, DGS, we're blocking a street off. So there's a process in place that those are also special events, as well as the identified cultural events. We have to continue to evaluate. So for example, Alive at 5 has been diminishing the interest in it. And some of it really is that right over the river, you also have a live music series. And then Saratoga has a lot of music series, and Schenectady does.
one,
And the
too.
state does as well. So one of the things that we've talked about, and I think maybe it's the convention center, but is that shared cultural calendar. So we're not competing like Pearlpalooza and Larkfest. They're not city events. The Office of Cultural Affairs doesn't produce it, but we certainly support it on lots of levels. So if you look at the operating budget, we have to be thoughtful about it. Alay, do you have anything to add?
So the Office of Cultural Affairs does 5 major events throughout the year.
Would you mind coming up here?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
So we do 5 major events throughout the year. However, as Rachel said, we're always supporting other initiatives and other organizations' events. I know for my department specifically, we're always looking to improve our events, to be more inclusive, to update, to modernize. I think if you look at our numbers as far as revenue and attendance, they are always increasing, and that's always a consideration that we take very seriously. How can we get more involvement? How can we get more excitement? Certainly our lineup has reflected kind of this newfound energy. But we are a small department, and we do a lot within that department. And as the director, once we are a complete operating machine, then we can look into doing other events.
Yeah, or even, I guess
Give it
even
another
assessing
year.
like that.
But-
It was actually Alive at 5 that the different people in my ward have talked about. They're like, I don't know anybody from the city that even goes to that. Why are we spending, it's important to get people in, but why aren't we reassessing and looking at different things? And so it's a fair point. Maybe it's something that should continue on, maybe it's also something that, as we're moving forward, looking at things that it's important to bring people in, but it's important to spend tax dollars to make people really happy that they live here too.
Of course, and I tend to disagree. I think a lot of Albany constituents that are alive at 5, back in the day when it first started in the 80s, it was the only gig in town. But per Rachel's point, there's not only one event every other day, there's different series every day. So we're all competing for the same audience, basically. So
Right.
and do what you can do with the lens of always moving forward.
So, so there's the Tulip Festival live at 5, Last Run 5K, Jazz Festival, and then it says other events. So you mentioned that you do 5 things, and those are under the revenues. So what are the other events when it?
We do a Dad's Fest. It's
What? I'm sorry.
Dad, like
Dad's
father.
Fest. It's on Father's Day in Washington Park. It's under the GL code. I think other activities, perhaps. The number is
Yeah. Well, it says other events.
right.
Yeah.
So that's a Dad's Fest. We also do a
Oh.
lunch series down the hill, kind of near Broadway and Tricentennial Park. At lunch in September is on Thursdays. We do a tree lighting. We help out with the mayor's luncheon.
Cash for Coats.
Cash for Coats is an initiative that we're doing right now. If you haven't donated, please do so.
No, I just want to piggyback on what Ginny said, because I think we always have to be looking at ways to strengthen the neighborhoods as well. And it really does make a difference when you have the city's support on different things. And so, some of these events, like I'll just speak about in my ward on Delaware Avenue, we had a fair of bliss quite a few years, and now it's, it's kind of dying out now, and they're going back to just like a neighborhood garage sale. But I do wonder if we had had more support, that it could have continued,
Sure.
So I just say that to keep in mind the importance of these neighborhood-based
Or maybe
events.
Well, but maybe
even
they need to
moving
meet
it-
with the Director of Cultural Affairs and to see if there's some partnership, or even when they're hiring talent.
I totally agree.
Even when,
with
when you're
that.
hiring talent and you say, are they easy to work
Well-
with? Are they not? It could be a lot of different
But,
things. here.
okay, and we actually, in the past, there has been outreach to the, to City Hall on this, and we have received some assistance.
Yeah.
But I guess I'm saying maybe there needs to be a little more emphasis.
You're talking about Dana activities?
Yeah, no, this was a neighborhood street fair that we had for quite a few years.
Like the Madison Street Fair, I mean, that's like beloved, but I guess, and that's the other thing, per
Well, this
Richard's
past year
point,
was
so
just-
many things from Washington Park, it'd be nice to have things in other parts of the city. I mean, we actually look forward to, we don't have events constantly, and like,
Oh,
you
no,
know,
and no
like
offense,
have something
Richard,
at
but-
Tivoli, like
If you can
Tivoli's
do the last
available.
run up on the golf course, I'd be happy with that.
No, but like, the farmer's market, I thought, yeah, it really should have been like a park.
at night.
No,
Not like you, but
Well, I
I'm just saying
this.
we worked to
Spread
get there, and the city wasn't really on board at first. So.
Regarding your festival on Delaware Ave, I can also say this, another major focus for me personally is partnering. It's a win-win for everyone. This year at Alive at 5, which was its 30th anniversary, we kicked off the series with our first ever Pride Night. And we partnered with the Capitol Pride Center, and in our own voices. Every opportunity we get, and certainly every outreach, whomever calls, we take seriously and see where we can work together.
And I
So-
appreciate that. I guess I'm just putting more focus, I think neighborhood, on some of these events in the neighborhoods really helps strengthen the neighborhood.
Sure.
It does. And it brings people to different parts of the city that have like great, it's just a worthwhile thing.
Right.
Yeah.
One example actually is the Sheridan Avenue. They have a wonderful festival every fall. And that has some city support, but people
you also
work
have to
hard
take into
at,
consideration logistics, like Tulip Festival brings 80,000 people. You can't have that on Delaware Avenue, you know? So we do have limits, you know? We certainly are open to any suggestions and any partnerships, but, you know, we also have limits.
I think the suggestion is to have smaller events in different.
Yeah, and also to evaluate, I mean,
Right.
are we really serving the city by doing X, Y, and Z event? Or could the last run be in different parts of the city? Or, I don't know, something where, I feel like our events are things that kind of happen on top of the city that at least in my ward, it does engage people in my ward. Like a lot of people don't even go to Tulip Fest. They're like, oh my God, it's just, it's everybody from out of town, they're coming in, which is important. That's a reason to have an event. You draw people there. But it's also pretty great to have events that engage people in our communities and bring people to different parts of the city. Our little Madison Street Fair, friends that live in different parts of the city will come to it, and Jamel was there.
Hey,
Didn't I
Jamel.
see you there?
Probably, I don't know, I'm everywhere.
Yeah.
I was there.
Yeah, Judy was there.
It was like
and
a month
Mike
ago.
was there.
Yeah,
Like it was
There you go.
really,
Alay was there.
Yeah, and I don't know if you were there, but like.
I mean, when you
Rachel was
talk
there.
about, when you say, you can't do 80,000 people on Delaware Avenue, I mean, my gut is that they get like 20,000 people, at this thing, but maybe
it's
that's,
tiny. But it's just
Yeah.
something where it's like, that is so great. It brings people in, but it also brings people from around the city to a different spot in the city. And it just, maybe it's something where it's like, wow, Alive at 5 is great, but maybe we'll only do one Alive at 5 and we'll do instead,
Yes.
consider shaking things up a little bit.
Absolutely.
yeah, I think you're right in terms of wanting to bring a little bit more focus to the different neighborhoods and encourage a little bit of that community pride right in the neighborhood. And if you have something in the neighborhood, then I think people from that neighborhood are going to be a little bit more inclined to participate and enjoy it, etc. I would love to see there be a joint calendar for the activities. It gets to be a little bit tricky. I do a little bit of this in my updates on my newsletters, where I include Alive at 5. I include when I hear about things going on at the Elks Club Music here and the libraries and that kind of thing, and also the state and what's going on at the State Plaza during the summer. And it's kind of struck me as a little odd that we don't do a better job of maintaining our calendar. I want to say, there's like a calendar on the website. So, by the way, what are we doing about web development if we're not going to have?
So I have been sitting through very, very long presentations. We did a pretty extensive RFP.
Sorry, Alay.
And thanks, Alay.
Thank you.
We're right in the process. They're like 2-3 hour presentations by web companies to rebuild our website. So we should choose someone shortly. And then from there, we'll begin the coding process and what we want out of our new website, which of course mobile is really important, that it's built in a mobile-friendly environment, as well as the ability to securely pay your bills online and be much more open-facing. I'm really excited about it. It's long overdue. So,
Will Mark be heading up that, or you?
well, there's a big, administrative services will, but there's a lot of, it's a committee, so every department is represented. Right now, there's a real back-end piece to it for the functionality, but the front end, the design will be much more interesting and innovative, and we can certainly show it to you before anything would be launched. I'm very comfortable with that.
So
for
I
feedback.
want to ask.
Maybe we could put a council member on
I want to
it.
ask the question about, so your department has an increase of 2 positions, essentially, as far as I see it,
Yep.
right? And just in general, we continue to ask other departments to kind of hold the line on the creation of new positions generally. There's an overall, concern about, most of our rank and file are receiving 0, 1, and 2% raises. So some of these are creations of new positions that result in, somebody who's on staff getting a significant raise. And your department is one of the few departments that really significantly grows every year. So could you address that?
Well, we significantly grow because we continue to get added responsibilities. So, for example, the positions that are grown is the energy manager, which has not been filled. And then the other position is we brought in our chief financial manager that was on the fire department's line. And he's coming into centralized budget. His name is Nick Riley. Many of you have been working with him. Because we also eliminated a CFM position, which, again, you're probably very familiar with Nick Blaze. Nick has been with us for 4 years. He's really was in the heat of things when we were in a $22 million deficit. So we service every single department. Nick Blaze. No, he's been here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. No, everybody's staying with me. We're bringing in the budget office. We're becoming a centralized budget office, essentially. So that's some of the growth. And once again, we service every single department. So we're not pitting the Department of General Services against the police department. The Department of General Services is losing a chief financial manager, and they are getting more of a financial position where people will do the invoices, more of the clerical work. So, because we've been doing a lot of analysis, and we realized that we need our finance people to be under the same roof, because we just work together. It's much easier. We lost our CFM and DGS. A lot of it is because they are so far away from the day-to-day operations in the decision-making and budget. So I'm very, very comfortable with the head count going up, but understand that in other departmts, those positions are totally serviced and they are not left out.
Police still has their own CFA.
Yeah,
right?
her name's Bridget Pardo.
Yeah.
Bridget has been with the city for close to over 20 years.
She
And
actually has a different title than CFM.
she's CFO.
Okay.
Chief Financial.
CFO, yeah. And Bridget, again, police department is very big, very expensive, and they have a lot of day-to-day financial responsibilities. And Bridget's been there for a long time.
But there was a bit of a disconnect when they were talking about the cost of an engineering project, and the city engineer wasn't aware of it. It kind of came up.
Look, we're no different than the state of New York and a lot of organizations. There are silos. One of my biggest mission is to try to break down those silos. So we spend a lot of time in departments. We don't necessarily sit on the second floor, on the first floor of City Hall and just have everybody come to us. We are involved in their monthly operational meetings, their budget meetings. We, work and solve problems every day. So, and a lot of them have to do with why is it stuck in purchasing? Why can't I get this person hired? Why is civil service taking so long to retitle a position? And that just didn't exist before. So I think that in general, most of the departments are very happy to have the support that they need to be able to run their operation,
Can I ask you a different question?
Sure.
I was told that the cost of this budget at $2,500 is being paid for out of council funds. That's my first question.
Which,
Like the actual budget.
The actual budget, 100 copies twice a year. One now and one when it's finalized. So that's my first question.
how much is it?
2,500. I was given
I've asked for the invoice.
Okay.
We have not been provided with the invoice. I've
Okay, it's
asked
the first
for what
I've-
account it's paid out of. We have not been provided with that information.
and I think we also asked for the invoices going back before it went into the format that it's in now, because the font certainly on the numbers is half the size that it used to be. You guys changed the format to make it heavily pictorial and glossy paper, I believe in 2018. Prior to that, it was on plain paper, more pages, bigger print, easier to read, and it probably costs less.
Well, this is also designed from the ERP system in New World. So the first year that I was the budget director, we did the entire format in Excel. Like, we kind of brought it over into pivot tables. So a lot of it's also the program that we're working with to build, that we build our budget in.
Well, you were the budget director even when it was on plain, more readable format.
Yeah, but yes.
But this one is so heavily pictorial that I think they had to shrink the size of the font.
I mean, I have my
And that's
reading
probably
glasses
why-
too. I mean, it's like,
And even then, I have
but
a
did you
tough
see how
time with
nice
it.
big my font is here? I mean, this is nice.
There it
and
is,
big.
and here it is nice.
Yes.
But on the numbers, it's very small. And I don't know, it just seems to me that the cost has skyrocketed up because of the pictorial. I mean, I noticed they had a graphic designer and a photographer that I think were not city employees. It's, I don't know. Why, I guess I'm wondering if the information we had is that we're paying for it, number one, why?
Well, number one, like
And does
they-
it have to be as expensive?
Well, some of this
when
is
it
a
used to be
design
much
issue. I
cheaper?
think it's a design issue, but one of the reasons we engage with the graphic designer is, wants to make it more user-friendly, but also, we were spending, I know, but I
Yeah.
understand that, but I will tell you, the first year we were here, one of the reasons we were working nights and weekends was layout. And I don't have anybody who, their job is to lay out in Publisher, or whatever it's produced in, and frankly, is any good at it. So really, once we engaged with a consultant who was a graphic designer,
But do we need all the pictures and the small font to make up for the size the pictures take up?
and we can certainly look into it for next year.
Yeah, and put it on plain paper, which is easier to read, and bigger
I
font for the numbers.
Wasn't part of the choice of paper
Can I
or
add something
printer.
real quick, just to be clear? The books from last year cost the same per book as they did this year. We didn't ask for the glossy paper, it was provided to us, no extra cost.
Right, but you had the whole pictorial layout. The big pictorial layout started in
We were asking
2018.
about from 2017, what was the cost in 2017 of printing the budget versus now that it's full color and glossy paper or whatever paper, you know, and we're going to note that there is a provision of the city code that requires this to be published in a union shop and show the union bug for everything. If you guys can just keep that in mind, because
Absolutely.
I don't have the invoice, but Mr. O'Brien says that it was printed in a union shop. It should have the union bug on
We
it.
will provide you the year-to-year differences within the books. And I will personally commit that it will be, the final copy will be printed with a union printer.
Okay,
Okay.
and
With a union bug.
Correct. It's a smear in the back, I get it,
larger
and not a
font on
smear, a
the
real one,
numbers,
yes.
please, with readable font on.
The
like
one
it
thing I was
used to
raised
be.
on was using union printers, I get it.
Like it used to be for
get
decades.
We will.
And,
right, so-
and shouldn't it come out of your budget, the cost of it? Why does it come out of council
Just the
budget?
printing itself comes out of your budget, everything else comes out of ours.
Well,
Only the cost of actually printing comes out of the council's budget. The graphic designer, any other costs come out of our budget.
So
Right.
I guess the request would be, I think pretty universally, if it's something that we're paying for, can we get rid of the pictures and just make it a lot more
We're not paying
user-friendly?
for the pictures.
The mayor's office pays for the photos.
well, we're paying the $2,500 to
But
print it.
If we're paying for the
Running to the-
printing, like maybe they could just have a book of pictures then, and we could have the budget.
And now the budget printed separately.
To be clear though, when we changed over before 2017, we had a lot of input that was very hard to read because all it was numbers, and it was very boring, and we tried to.
It was much easier, Dave, we were here, and it was much easier to read.
It was. I gotta tell you.
And
Yeah.
it is a whole bunch
You
of
weren't
budget,
here,
so
we
not
weren't,
very
it was
exciting.
easier.
So Dave, the other issue that I have had with this, that Mr. Wheeler says is no longer going to be, problem is when I'm finding errors in the adopted budget, for example, and I call, as soon as we receive it, as soon as we finally received it, which was in June, so we're paying for it, we get it 2 months after everybody else. Okay, so the adopted budget had a page that was not consistent with what we had approved. In order to get that done, it took like another 2 months for me to get the revised page so that I could say, yes, let's, okay. I mean, and there was some question as to whether or not you guys wanted to do the bookkeeping differently or something like that, which would have required council approval. No, you stuck with what we approved, so all it was a matter of that needed to be printed instead of something different that we didn't approve.
Okay.
And that took 2 months because there's graphic design,
Intellects.
whatever involved in it.
Understood. And moving forward, it will not take that long. We've created a streamlined process moving forward. It will-
I also,
You have my word.
I'm also glad to pay for about 20 copies for our staff, the council members and our staff. I don't understand why we're paying,
For 100.
100.
Well, 200, because it's printed twice.
Understood. Thank you.
So,
One more question.
Yes.
right, and I do want to make this be the last one because I want to get to Ms. Rizzo and, because I am looking to keep to a timeline. If there's any follow-up questions, we can also do that.
Yes, I don't know if you answered this before, but the purchasing director.
Yes.
There was a decrease.
Yes.
In their salary.
So we had a 33-year employee retire from the city. And after careful analysis of the scope and services of the two-person department, we had lowered the salary to be down more closer to our directors. Most of our directors are in the mid-range of 60 to 66 with the title director. So we felt that was, for the two-person department, more reasonable. In line with our other directors. And then lastly, and I know we're closing up, the only big other jump that I wanted to point to was our training fund. And, this also includes training and conferences. Our employees, we struggle sometimes to keep people in some of the departments. And we really want to, first of all, we want to offer them more opportunities to get additional training, to be even more assets to the city of Albany. So that has been increased a lot. But also, if you look at our training fund, we're really going from $15,000 to $51,000. That's a big jump. Mainly that is because of some of our new state-funded mandates of sexual harassment and workplace violence. But we really want to be able to do more and stronger training that, for those of you who work for the state and the county, have webinars and opportunities to educate and train our employees on things that we all care about: implicit bias, cybersecurity. That's a big one.
Don't open the email.
Don't open the email. And so my expectation
I
is.
got a couple of emails from the mayor.
I have gotten them too. Yeah, I've gotten,
That I didn't-
and then she wanted Amazon gift cards sent to her. So yeah, I have lots of stories. And again, if any of you, I just want to enclose, want to sit down and talk more about the department or some personal issues, I'm always available to you. So with that, I thank you for taking the time.
Yeah, I do want to note
Yes.
to council members here that the other big jump is that you kind of covered in your comments, but in terms of just looking at real budgetary impact is in contractual services for the IT on page 32. That's about a $230,000 jump.
So one of the big issues, we continue to have to do updates. This is the last year to do Microsoft Office, whatever we're in version now. We have to go to the next one. It's extremely expensive. We've been putting it off for about 5 or 6 years, and next year is the last year to do it. So a lot of it is going towards that, as well as, we have new versions of software that we have to upgrade to, and that costs money. It's expensive. But again, as we continue to get more automated, we will continue to see some of those costs happen, as well as some of the contracted services are people we have existing local software companies that we work with who were very helpful and beneficial during the ransomware attack. They're technicians and subject matter experts for the many, we have over 60 servers here, and they store a lot of information. And, we have to be able to monitor them and look at each and every single one of them and continue to update them and see if they're servicing us. So,
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
We're going to move on to audit and control. The budget is on page 24
I am coming tomorrow.
and 25
That meeting's.
Oh, okay.
of the budget. Ms. Rizzo has provided us with a little bit of an agenda for what she's interested in addressing that is in the packet that Ms. Andre printed out for us. And I am hoping that we can cover this in about 15 minutes, and great color on you.
Easy peasy.
All right.
Thank you for letting me take the time to present to you. I realize the audit department is small, and I just wanted to update you on a few items. I have two people here. Ransom Moore is our deputy chief city auditor, and Stephanie Slominski is a certified internal auditor, and she was recently hired in July. The items I just would like to address that we presented our budget and modifications were made without our knowledge.
Down, right?
Of course. And
Your budget was decreased, right?
yes. So there were two key positions that I just wanted to bring to the council's, just wanted to present it to the council. I did speak to budget afterwards about it. One of the positions is the deputy chief city auditor. We did put in an $80,000 salary from his $76,000 salary. It gave him a 5% raise. His position is in keeping with the other deputies within the city. His is on the lower end, comparing to even more so would be
This is Mr. Moore.
This is Ransom Moore. And also just understanding that he has saved the city substantial dollars since he started in December 2017. The budget director indicated it was an oversight, that he thought that he got a 3% raise.
He thought he got a 3% raise, I'm sorry.
Everybody in the audit department got a 1% raise,
Uh-huh.
unlike all the other administrative offices which got various raises throughout their departments. He said it was an oversight, that he thought he gave Ransom a 3% raise. He gave him 1%. I asked for 5%. He said we can address it later because we have a RFP out for the audit of post-employment benefits, other than pensions, for example, medical benefits. And when that RFP comes in, depending on where it sits, that we might save some money, that then we can consider whether or not Ransom would get a raise. I just thought that that's unfortunate, but I'm just letting you know. As an elected official, it does surprise me sometimes when I don't get, nobody refers back to me as far as what I submit. And the other position is
So they did not tell you that they were going to be doing any...
Changes?
Asking for us to do any changes?
No.
Because, and I don't know if Nick sent this to Michelle and if Michelle sent it out to everybody, but last week I got something from him where they want to do like an E&A transfer after we adopt the budget because we can't impact the salaries. So the resolution authorizing for it to go up by $1528
Who's that for?
for the deputy chief auditor. But 1528 does not seem to me to be,
So we requested $80,000. That was a raise of $3,622. He got a 1% raise of $763.
of how much?
He got the 1% raise of $763.
700, okay.
We asked for a 5% raise, in keeping with his salary being $80,000, and looking at the assistant deputy treasurer makes $82,000, who used to be the city auditor, which is interesting to me, that our deputy salary is not in line with other deputies within the city. And I'm talking about the assistant deputy, not even the deputy. The deputy for the treasurer makes $90,000. That was one position. The other position is the auditor position. Stephanie is a CIA, Certified Internal Auditor. Our budget was not that high. She does have much more credentials. The budget was $49,965 in 2019. The administration strongly recommended that the auditor department hire people with credentials, internal auditor credentials, and we did. And realizing that she just started, so the budget department basically said that, you know, when she's here a year, we'll probably bump up her salary then. I just hope she stays. That's my concern. The New York State pays $55,000. There's an opening. There's openings now that they opened up the job market, and we risk losing people. But I understand that the budget, you have to have your income to offset, you know, your expenses as well. But that was not brought to my attention, and that nothing is going to be done, I guess, about that one. Just wanted to let you know, because realizing that the audit department, my position, will most likely be appointed if the election is won. And I have tried to find out about what is my department, what is going to happen to my department, because the analysts are concerned that they may lose their job. Nobody's protected in my department. The analyst had a civil service exam that was canceled, and it was said it was canceled because I didn't respond to an email about the job description, which no one even said, you know, Sue, you didn't respond, and they just canceled the exam, whereas they said they can't cancel it. The state actually decides on the exam as far as when the exams are given. I tried meeting with the mayor to talk about, you know, the transition in my department, and she said I didn't win yet, so I will wait until November 6th, which I understand that, but my concerns is my employees, that I don't want people to feel like they're in jeopardy. I don't really know, you know, what the plan is, and I will talk right after, you know, November 6th, and I'll probably circle back to the Common Council again, just to make you aware. We can go on to the next item on the agenda.
I appreciate the difficult position they are in.
Right, and I just wanting to make sure the Common Council knows. I did present public comment regarding the bond ordinances. I did include, Councilman Fahey asked if she can have my notes, so I did include in this package. It's just the third page. The notes about the legislation that was presented in the ordinances. There was numerous errors in the legislation, and I identified what the changes should be, identifying the account numbers that need to be correct. This is like a Bible for us for 20 years. Those account numbers are so critical to us that to make sure we can follow things. But also it referred to a city comptroller. We haven't had a comptroller for 10 years. It should be the treasurer. It's in several spots. That should be changed. But the biggest one was the language regarding the last paragraph regarding the Board of Estimate and Apportionment was deleted. That it indicates that we don't. The bonds do not require Board of Estimate and Apportionment approval. I believe they do require approval. I think a precedent has been established. It's been in these ordinances for 10 years. When I asked for legal counsel, they said, you know, to avoid confusion. I don't think it's confusing. I think it's very important. I think once it leaves the Common Council, especially with the streetlights, was probably why that was heightened. And in all fairness, when the Common Council asks very good questions, and I appreciate the questions the Common Council asks, but it's a fluid conversation when you start talking about the economy and interest rates and things of that nature. And it changed. The market changed after your meetings. And I think that you should have been aware of some of the changes that were happening. And I think one critical question I didn't understand, that when the streetlights, for example, the deal didn't close. I didn't understand that we were going to borrow the money before the deal closed. Maybe you understood that. I didn't understand that. but we incurred $300,000 of interest, as well as it took 142 days to approve, and we accelerated our borrowing for these streetlights, and they didn't even go with the borrowing of the city, which then we also had additional costs. I think in whether or not the E&A would have caught that, I think that the dialogue going back to the Common Council was what was important. The money was borrowed without E&A approval, even though E&A approval was required. Again, I don't know if we would have been able to surface that at the time, hindsight's 2020, but realizing that was such a fluid conversation and it was a very large bond, I think it did deserve more dialogue after that meeting you all had in October about interest rates going up, and actually they did in December, and when we borrowed the money, interest rates have now actually been going down. So I'd like to see that language put back.
You raise a good point, because as I've looked at that particular line, so what difference does it make? Because after all, it's like this corporation council, the mayor, has a representative on E&A, and the treasurer, which are usually voting, so there's your kind of 3 automatic votes. But does it have any impact? And I think you're right. The issue is sometimes issue spotting and communication. So having, Mr. Ellis on the E&A, and then also having you be there to potentially raise issues that, could be brought to the attention of the Common Council with regard to, are they following our intent, with regard to as they're, issuing the bonds, et cetera. I certainly weighed in a lot on, okay, you got approval for $29 million in streetlights. The New York Power Authority has never had a project in which they've come in over, and many of the projects that were done, from the research I had done, many of the projects are 10 to 20% less. So it was a hard-fought battle to get them to reduce that by even 10%. But as it turns out, from what I'm hearing, that it's possible even, with that reduction of 10%, that we might actually have overborrowed for, with having just borrowed $26 million on that. So having, we make the authorization for the bond, it goes through the Common Council, and sometimes that may not be acted on, for another year. Really, in some cases. So having, those go through, I can see there being some benefit of doing that. So I do think that we should be putting that back in our bond ordinances.
I appreciate that recommendation if that happens. And then the proposed...
And I do want to note that with regard to February 5th, the reason why February 5th is there is because last year we introduced the bond ordinances on February 5th. This really should have been reflected as being October 7th as the date of the bond ordinances.
No, I think you were right with you have the September 27th is when you're introducing them, but if we look at the previous ones, instead of February, I think they might have said May. I think we need to look at that. I will look at the previous to make sure the date. My other thing is I just want to make sure 2020 versus 19, because when we look at these, like I said, these are Bibles to us for years afterwards, and I just want to make sure then we know it's 20 versus 19 or whatever the year is. And
so again, I think it should be October 7th, 2019.
Right.
So I understand your point that, but I don't want, once we pass the bonding ordinances, I don't want to prevent them from borrowing, having to wait until February to move forward with it, just because they used last year's template, which, by the way, I'm curious to go back and look at last year's bonding ordinances, because the city controller language is something we should have caught.
No, it wasn't in last year's bonding ordinances. Last year's bonding ordinances were correct. This bonding ordinance, they pulled it from I don't know how long ago. No, last year's were correct. You didn't make a mistake last year.
Okay. I
You
don't
didn't make a
understand
mistake
where
last year.
February 5th came from. then.
Sometimes I guess you just dig through the bulk for things.
But February came from the streetlight bond. They said they were going to do it in February, but borrow the money. That's where I think the date came from. That's why February was there. That's why I'm saying they don't borrow the money. Like, that's why I don't know if I agree with you to put October 7th. I will look at the other bonds because they're not technically borrowing the money until next year.
Right.
I don't think you want them to borrow the money this year.
Right.
Anyway, and I think sometimes it does warrant to circle back to Common Council
Right.
when there are such things, especially with interest rates and when decisions have to be made. Because my last thing is that I just wanted to bring to your attention is I do look at, on the last page of this is the unspent capital. And my concern about unspent capital is we should use our ERP system to calculate this. We should always know at any time what our unspent capital is. So right now, there's a glitch in the system since April for the soft close, and it hasn't been corrected. I think that's unacceptable that there's...
Explain this to me, soft close.
Okay, so soft close is for capital accounts. It takes because you leave those purchase orders open. All other purchase orders for expenses close the purchase order at the end of the year. Capital accounts are the only ones that remain open for future years because you might be paying for something over, it might take, more than 1 year to actually close out a capital purchase order. Takes long time to do a project, say.
I believe the charter allows for 5 years.
Right. So what happens is the soft close takes the ending balance and moves it to the beginning balance of the next year. So then you know how much money you have. That's why you're having such difficulty to find out how much money do we have on each one of these accounts. We should be able to press a button and you should get that information. You're not getting that information because we manually take care of it on Excel spreadsheets. That person is now working part-time instead of full-time in the Treasury Department. So now that they're working part-time, I think it's a critical job that needs to make sure that the ERP system is up to date and that everybody, all departments are able to access capital to know how much they have to spend. And calling the Treasury Department to verify, to me, is a manual process. So I took the numbers to see, okay, do they balance? Does the Treasury Department Excel spreadsheet balance with the ERP system? And it doesn't. So two answers to your questions is one, how much capital is unspent from last year? Or not last year, for all the years. So currently the Treasury Department says we have $41 million of unspent capital. 16 million of that is the streetlights. Because the streetlights, we paid $9 million, so there's your, so that's the difference. But still, $41 million is an extraordinary number as far as I'm concerned. So, but the ERP system has 38 million.
But we're still in 2019, so having 19 million for 2019 unspent doesn't strike me, basically what they're providing us with is information regarding the encumbrances against that, which is significant. So a lot of those funds are encumbered. And that's, the unencumbered funds is what we should be looking at.
So the encumbrances that are not correct in the system add up to 1.9 million. So I'm waiting for Ken in Treasury to correct this glitch. He's doing it manually. Because even if I took out the difference between the Treasury numbers and ERP has the encumbrances, isn't it? ERP has the purchase orders. ERP has 38 million unspent capital.
Do we have those numbers of what's encumbered?
Yes, we have a list of encumbrances. So so I ran a report. So here's your budget performance report. This is your Bible that you should be working off of to know, instead of all the multitude of lists that you get on Excel. Because when I asked to kind of compare the two, I found that we have an unspent capital from 2006. Now, I don't know if you guys...
We have the budget performance report from October 15th, I'm not sure that you're saying that shows the capital?
Well, if you ask for it, and that's what I'm finding out. You guys do a very good job, but what I find out is nobody provides you information unless you ask for it.
Oh, they don't even provide us with, I have asked for the account
Okay.
balances
All right.
since
I know you
since October 7th, which should come as no surprise to them that I'm asking for it, because this is something I've been driving home to them for 3 or 4 years.
Yes, and my concern is we have to have it on the system and not, if they want to do the cash basis and the accrual basis, and Ron wants to do this, calculation. So if you look at that report they gave you, this report has GH. GH, if that report at the very end totals $170-some million,
Yeah.
it doesn't include GH. GH is a separate subsidiary of the budget performance report. This is GH, that is A.
And
What is
GH,
GH is all your capital accounts.
So is that all of our bonds?
Yep, all your capital account bonds, yes. So in this GH capital fund, this is the capital projects that we borrow money for. This has $65 million is an amended budget, which I'd have to look back because I know you check on that to be the budget. I didn't check that number. I was looking at the balance remaining of unspent capital. 65 million is your budget. We have 38 million that is not encumbered or spent.
And you're going to give us a copy of that?
You can have this one if you want. The reason why I didn't want to give it to you is, I can give it to you. Ken is updating the encumbrances. This report is not accurate. Now, when I add it up, see, here's encumbrances here that have a negative, year-to-date encumbrances. It has a negative amount. You would never have a negative amount for encumbrance. It's a purchase order. You didn't take away a purchase order by $320,000.
Right,
That's because the balances have not been brought forward correctly.
so could you give that to Michelle? Michelle, could you scan this in and send it to everybody?
Do you want me to wait until Ken fixes these encumbrances? If it's done this week?
Well, that leaves tomorrow.
Okay. I've asked him every day. He's this
Could you-
close.
yeah, could
So let
you-
me try tomorrow at the end of the day, and I'll get it to you regardless. But I'd love for him to fix
Could
it.
you give her that so she has it to scan in and send to all of us in the event that late tomorrow you still don't have the...
Okay. But I just want you to be aware of these negative numbers. They're all wrong. And this, to me, is a Bible. It's critical, and it's been going on since April, and I would have made more emphasis to get this fixed. All the departments do not know their balances unless they call Ron in Treasury, and he works part-time now.
And why is he part-time?
Because he retired and now works and makes under $30,000.
Oh.
So the reason why Treasury all got 3% raises is because they saved the $15,000 from Ron's job, and they gave everybody a raise.
All right.
Thank you.
That's all I got.
Debt service as an expenditure. Should it be fully reported in the budget as an expenditure?
Okay, wait a minute. Debt service is an expenditure.
Should the full $23 million we're spending on debt services in 2020 be reported as an expenditure in the budget?
No, 23 million is not the expenditure. The expenditure is only the debt that is being paid. The rest of it's on the balance sheet.
No, we have
Unless you look at this
principal
GH
and
report.
interest
Yes,
payments.
yes.
Principal and interest payments next year is $23 million. But
Principal and interest payments are $23 million, and you're saying it's not included in the budget at $23 million?
it's included in the budget as about 21 as an expenditure.
Let me just look at the numbers.
Give me a call.
Yeah, I'll look at the numbers to see where they calculated the 23 and the 21 or whatever.
I can tell you how they did that, but.
No,
but I wanna
because of the
adjourn
interest,
meeting
because of the interest income.
No. I'm adjourning the meeting. I'm not asking for a motion. It's pretty clear we all.
But, yeah, Judy, anytime you want.
Thank you very much
it-
for being here.
Anytime you want, you're not getting what you need, just let me know, and we'll try to circle around to get it.
ransom